Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. McCabe, thank you for being with us today, listening to you, just answering Senator Hawley's question. It reminded me that you are spending a lot of your time on CNN these days, and of course, this is not a debate on CNN. This is a hearing of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And I have to say, when did you go to CNN?
I'm sorry, was that a question of when
well, I'll answer it for you. Was it in August? Was it in 2019? I think that may be right. I think you're pretty lucky.
It might be. I don't remember the exact dates. Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact date, Senator, but that sounds about right.
Yeah, I think you're pretty lucky to have landed a job pretty much anywhere after having been fired from the FBI. And I think that the IG publicly flogging you in his report, and the AG fired you a month later, and that was a pretty sad demise, I guess, of your career in public service. And you were set to retire at the tender young age of 49. Isn't that correct?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
That's not correct.
What is correct?
FBI agents become eligible to retire when they reach age 50.
Okay. All right. And you've got a lawsuit against the federal government now claiming that you had a record of unblemished and nonpartisan public service, and you're demanding that the court reinstate your employment as Deputy Director of the FBI and pay you your full pension. Is that correct?
That sounds correct, ma'am, but I'll let the legal papers speak for themselves.
Let me ask you this. Listening to you today and having read some of the things around your career, how did you get caught up in such a web of deceit and obstruction and cover-up? And is this culture standard operating procedure at the FBI?
Well, I'm not sure I understand the point of your question, but I also don't agree with the characterization of the culture at the FBI. The point of my question is this. I'll help you with it.
Let me help you with that. You didn't want to answer Senator Cruz's questions about corruption, and I can understand why. But what you have to understand, that as overconfident as you all were in the plot that you were carrying out at the FBI in your government job paid for by taxpayer dollars, you all had created this web and culture of corruption and cover-up and obstruction, and you thought that you could do it. You thought you would be able to get by with it, but you got caught. You've said today that you wish you could reconsider your decision requesting the FISA warrant on Carter Page and whether or not Director Comey should have held the press conference on Hillary Clinton. And listening to your answers, I think I have never heard of an action. Every criminal I have heard in a case, they generally will say they wish they hadn't committed the crime, or that someone who has done something wrong wishes they had not done that wrong. So you took these actions. You've been called out by the IG and the AG. Why shouldn't you be prosecuted for your actions?
Senator, first of all, there was absolutely no plot or scheme or conspiracy between myself or any of the folks that I worked with in the work that you've referred to, okay? Secondly, I'm not aware of a single, other than Mr. Kleinsmith's admissions, I am not aware of a single act or even an allegation against anyone who was involved in these cases
that
having
wrong?
committed a crime.
Was the IG
I'd like
wrong?
to finish my. I'd like to finish my answer, Senator.
Well, it's my time, and I've only got 2 minutes left. How long have you known Christopher Steele?
I do not know Christopher Steele.
I think you've known him about 2 decades, right? How long has Bruce Orr known Christopher Steele?
To be clear, Senator, I don't know Christopher Steele. I've never met Christopher Steele, so that's not correct. And I can't tell you how long Bruce Orr has known Christopher Steele. Okay.
The exculpatory information on the Crossfire Hurricane, on Carter Page's recorded conversations, and that was not disclosed. What are the consequences under the FBI rules for when an FBI agent lies or otherwise misleads a federal court?
So the failure to disclose the Carter Page information is not as far as I'm aware, was not determined to be a deliberate misrepresentation to the court. So to answer your question about misrepresentations to the court, generally, FBI people would be disciplined in the same way anyone in the judicial system would if they were found to have deliberately and intentionally misled the court.
So you feel like no one did anything wrong?
I am simply following the findings of the Inspector General, which documented Mr. Kleinsmith's intentional acts, but failed to find any evidence, documentary or testimonial, to indicate that the other mistakes in the FISA package were the result of intentional misconduct.
Do you think you were wrongly fired?
Yes. Yes, I do think I was wrongly fired.
And
yes.
You think you did nothing wrong?
That's correct.
Even though the IG pointed out that you did, and even though you all had a culture of corruption and cover-up, that you thought it was okay to spy on Carter Page, it was okay to mislead Michael Flynn. This is a sad state of affairs, and I am pleased that you are no longer a part of the FBI.
Senator, I'd like to answer those allegations.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so no, I categorically refuse to agree with your assertions. No one that I am aware of in the FBI conducted any activity that should leave them susceptible to criminal prosecution, certainly including myself, as someone who's now been the subject of investigative activity for years, for no baseless, the subject of a baseless investigation conducted by the U.S. Attorney's Office for almost 2 years, which concluded in a dismissal of their case. So no, I don't believe that I committed any crime. I know I never committed any crime working for the FBI. And yes, I believe that the conclusions in the IG's report were baseless. I believe it was a flawed and misleading and deeply unfair investigation that led to the my unfair termination.
Well, if you know nothing about what was done, and Yates and Rosenstein and Comey all said they knew nothing about any of this, how in the world did it get so far off track? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you.